And welcome everyone. It is another edition of Discover Marshalltown. I'm Kyle Martin from KFJB Radio. It's been a long time since I've actually hosted this show, so kind of fun to host it again. And we've got a guest that I'm very familiar with, and I'm sure you probably are as well, Nancy Stevenson. And Nancy, for over 40 years, worked at our area United Way. So she has just recently retired. We're going to talk about retirement, but first of all, Nancy, welcome.
Welcome. It's good to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, take me back in time, 40 plus years ago, when you started at the United Way. So you kind of, you come in on an entry-level position and work your way up? How did the ascension to the throne work for you?
Yes, actually, I moved to Marshalltown in 1978 as a bride. I had just gotten married and had thought I was not ever going to work. And after 3 months, I needed a job.
Sure.
And so I actually answered an ad in the paper for office help. And that's how I started. And I had heard of United Way before, because I came from Burlington, but started out doing all the office things. Again, we've never been a big office, so there was a lady, her name was Marion Harvey, and she was retiring, and they had just hired a new executive director, and her name was Jane Swartzendruber, and I was hired like 2 or 3 weeks after she was hired. So we neither one really knew a whole lot about how the process worked and different things like that. But she had had some training. And so I did the accounting and did all the clerical things and worked with the pledge cards and all that entry-level things.
Yeah.
And again, just because I was new in the community and didn't know anybody, that it was really a nice way for me to get to know people in the community.
Sure.
Because I got to meet the board members and the volunteers and just lots of other people in the community. So, and also finding out what the agencies did and all the good works they were doing in the community.
Excuse me.
Just really made me enjoy the job and knew that I really wanted to stay there.
Yeah. So you've obviously, you worked your way through the ranks and became the director. When did that happen?
I actually became the director in 1994. So, part of my journey was as I worked through with a couple other executive directors, and one of those executive directors really encouraged me to go to college because I just had a high school diploma. And so I came to MCC and came to night school, and so did my 2+ years or whatever it took to get through the MCC program, and then switched over to Buena Vista here and finished up my 4-year degree. So my degree is here also, and again, I enjoyed that. But again, I worked full-time at the office, and again, because of the night classes and all the different ways that they offer for older untraditional or non-traditional
Sure.
students to attend. So I was at the college for many, many years. And so when I had my 4-year degree, I guess they felt like I was smart enough that I could do
Even though you have all this life experience and job experience.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And sometimes people are really caught up on that and stuff like that. And that was fine. It gave me lots of opportunities to learn new things that just helped me in doing the job. So I started as the executive director in 1994. And it's kind of funny, is Joel Greer was the board president when I was hired. So
The mayor.
yes, and so I went out when he was the mayor, and he was the board president when I was hired.
Wow.
So
Wow. Well,
yeah,
it's funny how stuff comes full
exactly.
circle, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
Some of the challenges of the United Way, and I'm sure there are many, but I would think fundraising, the annual campaign is a big undertaking. And I'm probably glossing over how much work goes into that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a biggie, right?
It is, and I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions about United Way is that oh, what do you do now that the campaign is over? Because they don't usually hear about us until September. All of that is changing with social media, and now there's more ways to keep in touch with people. But yes, it is a year-round process, and so we finish allocations in January, and then they start planning with the new co-chairs in February. So, my replacement, Kendra, has met with her co-chairs. They've talked with the past chairs, and they're planning and looking at all kinds of details for the campaign. But, when I came, it was very much, hands-on with the Assistance League had squares of the community, so neighborhood blocks, and for what we called the retired or retirees, they actually went door to door and knocked and asked if they'd make a donation to the United Way, which now, 40 years later, we would call the police and have those people arrested.
There's somebody at my door, I don't know.
I mean, times have just changed. And so, that was probably one of the first things that we did, that Jane did, is that, again, at that time this would be in the late 70s, that people were reluctant to have somebody come to their door and ask them for money, even if you were giving them a check or whatever. I mean,
right.
Now looking ahead, we can see all those reasons. And so then we switched to where we actually did a mailing to those people. And so we do mailings now to retirees and people that live in the county. That was something new that we had never, if you didn't get contacted at a business, then that was the only way we contacted you. And now we also have a leadership now. So we have people with a computer program. We also didn't have computers.
Yeah.
I mean, I did paper books, accounting. In fact, I can still.
You licked a lot of envelopes.
I can still no, we always had a postage meter, so I never had to lick envelopes, and I'm so grateful for that. So at least they had that going. But yeah, we didn't even have a computer. We didn't get a computer until the mid-'80s. And so everything was paper. We had IBM cards. I mean, that's really a blast from the past. I can remember one of my jobs was to go to Lenox, and I don't even remember how we did these, but somehow those IBM cards had to be in order, and we would take them down there, and then they would print out a big sheet, and we'd use that all year long to write all of our donations on it. And I don't know remember what they did then. Maybe they created new IBM cards. I don't know, but we were doing that. And then we ultimately moved to Fisher Controls, and they had this humongous computer, and they had a little terminal there that I sat there and actually entered it in there. But again, they still printed out a printout for us, and we had to use that all year long until.
Wow.
So I mean,
you've come a long way.
When you think of the technology and how much technology has happened in the last 20 plus years, it's just amazing. But again, I can think that we didn't have. Now we have a computer that we put all the stuff in, and it prints out a report and says, "This is how much you've raised today, and this is how they're all categorized." We would take an afternoon and we would go through those lists, and everything was color coded. Now it just sounds so antiquated, but hey, that's what you did. And then we'd have the totals for when the volunteers came in, so they knew how much they had raised in their areas of responsibility.
Amazing. Nancy Stevenson is our guest today on Discover Marshalltown. So she just recently retired, like within the last month, right?
Right. I'm on vacation right now because I get paid for until the end of March. So I had 2 months of vacation.
Wow.
That had accumulated between the tornado and COVID, and
Sure.
we didn't take a whole lot of time off. We just
So
worked.
you're not going anywhere.
No.
You are. I mean, you're retired, but you're going to maintain a residence here.
Yeah,
somewhere.
I'm staying in Marshalltown.
Good.
Yeah, I've lived in Marshalltown longer than I've lived in my hometown, and so I know more people here than if I would move back home, although my mother would like me to move back home. She told me that just recently. I didn't respond.
Oh, no.
She said, I would hope that you would want to come live back at home, and not with me, not with her, but
Sure.
in Burlington. And I just didn't say anything. It's like, I love you, Mom, but my life has been in Marshalltown, and so when I think of hometown, I think of Marshalltown because that's where I've spent most of my life.
So what are you going to do with some of your free time that you have now? Obviously, it's been insanely cold. Nancy and I were talking before the show, so she's not venturing out too terribly much in the cold weather. But do you have plans to maybe take up some hobbies, volunteer?
Yes, yeah, and I have, that's one of the things. I haven't had lots of hobbies because of work. But yes, I'm interested in family history, and so I have lots of genealogy from my family. People know in my family that if they have pictures or whatever on people, that I'm the person to give it to. And so I have all that material, but it's not on the computer. And so I've always said that once I retire, I'm going to get all that material and put it in the computer. And so I'm getting my printer set up in my little office at home. So I'll be up and running on that. But yeah, it's been very, very nice with it being so cold and snowing that I don't have to go outside.
Isn't that the best?
And I, my car sits in a garage, so it's like I don't have to worry about shoveling. They come and do my drive and things like that. So it's been wonderful. It's just, I've really, really enjoyed it. And, I know I'll miss it. And I will volunteer. I've told them that I will come back and stuff their envelopes when it's time for campaign time to do those kind of things. But I'm also on the Friends of the Library group. And so, there's opportunities to do that. I'm not planning on doing anything immediately, but again, there's lots of agencies that I've been involved with. And so now that I'm not part of the system for them, that, I would love to serve on boards and do different things like that. And eventually I would like to serve on the United Way board down the road. I've always been on the other side of the fence and not really involved in any of those decisions or the allocations and how agency dollars are spent. And so it would be fun to be on the other side and get to sit in those meetings, because I'm usually out in the hallway directing traffic. And so I never usually get to hear them in that setting. And so those are things that I would like to do. So, and I'm also very involved in my church. And so I'll be involved in doing some things like that. And so I have plenty of things to keep me busy. I won't be bored.
Okay. It doesn't sound, I can't imagine you not being involved in some way, shape, or form with the United Way. Nancy Stevenson is our guest today on Discover Marshalltown, and we'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Discover Marshalltown. I'm Kyle Martin. Our guest is Nancy Stevenson, newly retired Nancy Stevenson, and she was executive director for the United Way for how long?
The executive director, 26 years, but I worked there for 42 and a half years.
Wow, that is, wow.
That's a dinosaur.
That is a lot of service to our community and surrounding areas. So, Nancy, we were talking a little bit about what you might do with your free time, and genealogy is near and dear to my heart. So, when you when you've been conversing with relatives and you have been kind of delving into your background and your history, is there anything in your history, your family history, that surprises you? Any horse thieves or bootleggers or anything like? Because I found out a lot of stuff about my family. I was like, maybe we won't talk about those folks.
I don't have any stories like that, but my family was from Germany and England and those areas, and I know that some of my relatives were sent to Australia.
Oh, that was a penal colony.
Yes. So you know that if you ended up in Australia, you had done something, and I don't know all the details behind it, but yeah, I'm sure there's some very interesting stories on that. But I've also been able to find some things, again, because of my interest in it, with family members and my grandmothers and that. And both of my grandmothers are from Iowa. So, you know, little wedding things of, you know, the paper describing their little wedding, which again was, they got married in their living room, and their sisters provided dinner after the wedding. So, you know, pretty modest compared to
Sure.
what you think of today in weddings and different things like that. And also have been able to find, again, because of, as, you know, family members die and people go through things, photographs. And so, you know, my grandfather, my mom's maiden name is Blessing. And so my grandpa Blessing was always in a wheelchair. I don't ever remember him not being in a wheelchair. He had been in an industrial accident at Leopold Desk Company in Burlington, and so he was in a wheelchair. Lo and behold, people had pictures of him, you know, family pictures of them with him standing up and stuff.
Wow.
So it was, you know, because when I was little, you know, that had just apparently happened like 2 or 3 years prior to that. So those have been fun things to see, or see pictures of, you know, graduation pictures. And even when my husband died, and we, you know, started digging, he was in World War II, and, you know, all those old pictures that he had. When we saw the grandkids, the grandsons, one picture looks just like his grandson. I mean, it was amazing. So those things have been really exciting to see the resemblance, and how through the generations, some people really do resemble other people at a different age in their life.
Wow, that's neat. Yeah, I love genealogy. I love
Yeah.
finding out stuff about my family. In some cases, I don't love it, but depending on who they are. But
We all have them.
yeah, we do. Growing up in Burlington, the river town of Burlington, Iowa, it is steeped. There is a lot of Iowa history. I mean, the river towns basically were where Iowa was populated first. So what was it like growing up in Burlington? I've been to Burlington many times because I like the Burlington Bees. We've talked about minor league baseball before,
Yeah.
you and I have over the years. What was it like growing up there?
Well, as probably with any person that grows up, you don't appreciate, you know, what's there until after you leave and come back. But yeah, I guess we just got used to having the river there. And, you know, that was one of the first times when I came to Marshalltown, you know, I would hear the trains. And at first I didn't realize they were trains. I thought they were boats, you know, because I was used to a big river. This shows how naive I was. And when I saw the Iowa River, it was like, oh, that's not
You're
a
like,
river.
oh, that's not
Because
a
again,
river.
I was in my early 20s when I got married, and I'd always lived by a big river. So to me, that's what a river was. So it was always kind of funny when I found out that the Iowa River was not exactly the same magnitude as the Mississippi River.
Just a little
But
smaller.
there is a lot of history there. There's a lot of really old houses, and so there's lots of architecture and different things like that. We have a huge park there. That's one thing that I miss in Marshalltown is it's called Crapo Park, C-R-A-P-O, Crapo. That's the name of a person, and he was quite the botanist, whatever, and so they have all kinds of different trees and plants, and they're all marked, so you can kind of take a self-tour. It's a huge park. It's like 63 acres or something like that. I mean, it's gigantic. And again, so I was used to huge parks. And Marshalltown has nice parks and things like that, but it was just, culturally, it was different for me. And again, because we were on the river, we had the bluffs, and so we could look over into Illinois, but we also got flooded. There was lots of flooding.
Right.
In Burlington. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with, I know we have some minor flooding, usually in the fields, but that's one thing I guess I'm grateful for, that we don't have to deal with that, which they pretty much have to deal with it almost every year. But yeah, we went to the baseball game. That was, when I was in middle school and high school, that was a big thing. We went to the Burlington Bees all the time. That was the big hangout for everybody to go to the baseball games and things like that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, community field in Burlington's a fun place to go see a ball game. Nancy Stevenson is our guest today on Discover Marshalltown, and Nancy just recently retired from the United Way. And over the years, Nancy, the things that I have noticed about the United Way that you have been heavily involved in, besides the campaign, the annual campaign, are some of the golf tournaments. And then you guys start kind of thinking outside the box a little bit. Power of the Purse is relatively new on the scene. And I have been connected with it because I've been the MC of it. Maybe the second year you had Power of the Purse, I came on board. But you've had to think outside the box a little bit for fundraising.
Yes, and I mean, we do our basic, fundraising through a business and, letters and different things like that. But again, many people don't even know what United Way is. And so if they don't know what it is, we try to have had some activities to get them engaged in some fashion. And so, yeah, golf tournaments, everybody loves to golf once the weather gets decent. And so, that's always a fun event and has been supported by other businesses for us.
Right.
And then in 2008, when all the things happened with the banks and stuff like that, a lot of those entities had to kind of step back from their sponsorship. And so we took it over ourselves and did that. But yeah, Power of the Purse came from an idea that at a conference I went to. And, United Ways always have a regional conference of small United Ways. And they always have a time where they get all the executive directors that want to attend, a table discussion of whatever. And somebody brought up that they had been having this Power of the Purse event, and it just sounded intriguing and so different. That's one of the things too, was with all these fundraising is, you don't want to step on the toes of everybody else that's doing different things and kind of replicate what they're doing. And so, I talked to Jane Bauer, and, she got together and got a committee together, and, they kind of put it together the first time at the country club. And, I can't remember how much we raised, but I think we raised like $5,000 to $10,000, and we were just like ecstatic. I mean, we were just over the moon about it. And, but when we saw how it worked, we thought, we need to tweak this, and it's been going on now for 10 years.
Oh, no way.
So it just shows how, yes.
So I've been MC for 9 years?
Wow. And so we've just kind of tweaked it every year, and it's really turned out to be a wonderful event. It's a ladies only event, and so that's been unique about it, and we've kind of held fast on that. Even this last year with COVID, we did it virtually, which again, it's a fun activity, which of course you being there, you know how fun it is, and they get kind of wild, and
They do get a little noisy.
yeah, they do, and so but it's a fun event, and so we're always looking for new things like that, and I know that they're looking at things now to see if they can come up, but again, coming up with something unique.
Right.
But again, we want to do something that helps support the organization and those agencies. I mean, that's the whole reason we're doing it, is to provide those programs. And I guess that's what I think that people don't understand, is that how much agencies are doing in our community on a day-to-day basis, that they just forget and just don't realize that there's people that need assistance that, you might think, oh, well, they're poor and they need food and they need shelter. Yeah, those are basic needs that people need, but, there are other people that are working every day and, have families and a good life, and they might have some circumstance happen to them or their child that they just really need some assistance. And we have a powerful network of agencies that can help. They may not be able to address exactly what they've got going on, but they can offer support to help them. And that's what I like about the United Way agencies, is that they're there to lend a hand.
Yeah. 26 agencies, right? Correct?
27.
27.
Yes.
Under the umbrella of the United Way. And how does I know we have a little bit of time left, but how does somebody become an agency? Because once you're an agency, you're not always an agency, right?
Well, yes.
You are.
Unless you really mess up.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. We have some, financial, expectations and different, they have to have outcomes and all those kind of things for reporting and stuff like that. But yes, actually the month of January is when we accept any agencies that are interested in applying for this next year. And I know that because I was there, we had somebody that did request the information, and they have to turn it back in the 1st of March. And then they will talk to the board at the March board meeting, and the board at that point in time will decide if they're going to be an agency or not. And, some of the things they look at is, is it a duplication of service? Do we already have 6 people doing that? Is it a need is unmet, that we need to be doing something about it? And so they look at all those things. They also look at the amount of money that they're asking for. I mean, we just don't have a big pot of money sitting there, so we have to look at what our availability is of funds. Are we going to be able to raise that much more money in the fall campaign? So if they would be admitted in March, then they're on the brochures and all those kind of different things. And then they don't actually start getting money until February of the next year. So it's a year-long process, just because of the campaign, because we're raising that money, and then that's the money they use in January to allocate out. Okay. So, and we tell them that up front so that they don't have any expectations. But that gives us opportunity to highlight them and talk to people about them and explain. Our newest agency is Ralph Rains, that we admitted last year, and it's equine therapy for children and adults, mostly children. And so, we have talked about that and what they do and how they do that. And so, if they have children that are autistic or have physical impairments or whatever, the circumstances, sometimes it's post-traumatic stress. I know that they've worked with kids from the tornado and now the derecho, that, just because of their particular circumstances, they're just not dealing well. And so they can work with them in a different way to help them to overcome that stress and trauma that they're having in their life.
That's interesting. Very interesting. We're about out of time for our show, but Nancy, on a personal level, I just want to say thank you for all the years. I've been hosting the radio program at KFJB for 17 years, and you have always been on the radio with me, willing to obviously talk about the United Way or anything associated with the United Way, and you helped me become the MC of Power of the Purse, and I love doing it. It's so fun. So I know our community, and there was recently, by the way, a Nancy Stevenson Day in the city.
Yes.
So congratulations on that. Congratulations on your
Yes.
retirement, and thank you for all that you have done over the years.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you. I appreciate that.
That is our program, Discover Marshalltown.